Be honest, do I have something weird on my face today? Because the men I've encountered on my walk this morning have looked at me very weirdly. Instead of smiling and nodding, which is the usual thing you do in the countryside. No respect from the old folks these days. Typical. Name Sami, welcome. Anyways, this guy. My pride and joy, my pièce de la résistance, the behemoth that I shaped from air dry clay. As I'm sure you've realized if you're as much on the Halloween decor haul side of the internet as I am, the shape of the Cracker Barrel ghost that went sort of viral a couple of years ago, which I really badly wanted, but quickly realized that there's no Cracker Barrels in Europe. Instead, I decided to make it myself. The original had like a little lantern dangling from that arm. Multiple week project, and I was very much spent at the end of it. I did not bother actually making that lantern. Mostly been suspending whatever I can get my hands on that roughly matches in size from there. Most recently this fall, acorn wreath, and during the summer months, disco ball keychain. We're gonna go a different route. What I think would look really cool and add to the ghostly apparition of it all is a chandelier. And my absolute favorite chandelier is from Tim Burton's Dark Shadows. I don't care what Rotten Tomatoes says. That movie was made to cater specifically and personally to me and Michael Bublé, apparently.
In the theater 5 times. I took my friends, my family. I just thought it was a beautiful movie.
Did you pay 5 times?
Yes,
Wow.
for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I'm not sure if you had asked me that I would have thought that Michael Bublé and me have anything in common, but okay. In the entrance hall to this big old family mansion, there is this ginormous chandelier with like tentacle elements and a lot of just chains with crystals on it. I'm gonna try and make a much smaller version that I can hang on my little ghost buddy over there. This thing is obviously gonna be a lot smaller than the original, so I'm gonna have to try and see how much of the detail I can keep. Remembered I had like a little bracelet making kit that came with a bunch of little tiny see-through beads that I'm gonna use en masse for the crystals on the chandelier. Probably gonna be wire involved. Been looking at a bunch of references, trying to wrap my head around the exact design. The key part is gonna be getting the tentacle things just right. I have decided that I don't need or want it to light up. This whole thing is hollow. It actually looks the coolest when there's a light flickering inside of it. And I always think having like 2 lights going on that thing at once is kind of overkill. Gonna make everything a lot easier, you know, if I don't have to account for a big LED tea light or string lights or something to also fit into the design of it all, because trust me, there's enough to figure out as it is. It doesn't make sense that I'm starting out trying to pick out the clear beads from the rest of them. Probably not, but currently I can't help myself. Right, I am a bit worried about the scale of this and the amount of arms and how I'm gonna bring those two together. I think the original has around like 8 points where there's light. I think I got the basic shapes down. Essentially 2 parts that are made up of these tentacle sort of shapes, and then they sort of overlap in the middle. I just need to figure out how I'm gonna make these parts and how big. Couple of new developments. I decided to get started on the shapes for like the lower tier, the more complicated shape. It's like an S-curve with like a tail. Thought I was gonna make everything out of wire, but these elements are a bit more flat than just round, so I'd have to attach something to that, and still making it look kind of delicate seemed too fiddly for me. So I decided against that and went back on my air dry clay bullshit as per, and that's what I'm using to at least make a base. Then the question, how do I get that shape? I was trying to bend like some thick craft paper into the shape that I wanted, but trying to bend this big piece, I was kind of losing control and it wasn't really working how I wanted it to. So I cut off a strip from that and made a much smaller one in the exact right bend shape that I need. Covered that in tape and then also cut out basically the side profile. Made this little contraption that I can now lay the individual strips of air dry clay that I have cut out in the shape that I need, thanks to this template, hopefully perfectly even, 8 times, and lay that on top of the contraption to dry. And because that's gonna take some time, I also brought a hairdryer so that I can at least get it to dry on the outside relatively well so that it will hold the shape on its own, and then I can take that off and put the next one on. Working well so far. I have 2 here to dry already, 1 still on the contraption, about to take that off. My base for it all is gonna be this thing. Glass crystal, actually meant for literal life-size chandeliers, because I ordered like, I think it's meant as like a repair kit of like these sort of glass crystals many moons ago. I don't really remember what for, to be honest, but it comes in handy from time to time. Coincidentally, that crystal has exactly 8 sides, so I can, I hope, glue on these arms pretty easily. Got all 8 over here, and now looking at the reference again and at this thing, maybe I can use just a part of this, because I think the angle of like the lower part down here and that thing going up is pretty much the same. So maybe I can just use like a shorter part of this, only use this part like up to here, and then turn that upside down. And I don't have to do this process all over again, but I do have to do this one all over again. So yay.
A very big distinction in style and Safer, actually, funny enough, the other day when we were at... I was unable to find any sort of research on this. Cultural practice is something by his enemy.
Back to these ones, they're all bone dry. I'm now gonna sand off like the worst of the worst. Okay, so I covered every individual piece with a mixture of mostly craft glue and a little bit of water in hopes of just reinforcing everything a little bit, harden the air dry clay a bit more if it just seeps into the pores of it and then dries. I think it's pretty good. Sanding went really well. Only one of those broke, but I fixed it. Upper tier ones were drying back there, should be all drying now. Next thing I probably need to do is paint them. They look different in every reference picture that I could find, and it hasn't been many, let that be said. The original tentacle pieces might be see-through. That would make sense for a chandelier, and they look like they are in a lot of the pictures, and in some they don't look see-through at all. Weird reflections, movie lighting, and color correction of it all. Paint on some of the texture, white and maybe a slight bluish tint. The underside I can just make little dots, indicate like a sort of tentacle vibe. And then I'm probably just gonna give it a clear glossy coat at the end. Actually, the more I have been looking at that one reference where they didn't look see-through, I'm pretty sure they aren't see-through. It's just that the shots of the chandelier from afar makes it look like everything's made of the same material. But any close-up shots, there's actually no way that that's the case. So we're on the right track with this, actually. Just sort of making the tentacle suction cup things by dotting the underside of each individual piece with the end of this brush. That does make pretty good little circles on an even surface when I tried it out. These aren't an even surface. The outcome varies a little bit, but overall, good enough, I think. They're definitely fucking see-through. Searched for dark shadows chandelier again, and this picture came up from like a behind the scenes set sort of photo, inserting that here. Why I haven't seen this in all my other searches, I don't know. The internet's weird like that sometimes. Basically confirms that it looks exactly the way that the logical part of my brain, you know, thought that it did. Now look at this close-up still from the movie. That doesn't look see-through in the slightest bit, right? It's not just me. So I guess what we can learn from that, nothing that you see on the screen is ever truly real. I'm not too mad about it because in my case that wouldn't have changed the material that I made these pieces out of anyways, which by the way, they're all painted underside and like the top now have like a slightly bluish tint to it all, because that's what the color grading of the movie did to it. The very transparent, clear chandelier. You know, every part of it. Very, very clear, transparent, and see-through. Still need to add like a little bit of a stripy texture to the top. But seeing that behind the scenes photo of it has brought back an idea that I had early on and then completely forgot about, which is silver paint. To give it some highlights, make it glisten.
Christian then meet this new family that they're going to be staying with, and instantly they break one of the rules.
I was once again let down by my supply stash, especially when doing mixed media projects of any kind. There's usually at least one thing you end up not having on hand when you need it. As was the case this time around, I was pretty much out of any sort of even just passable glue for this project. Made a run to the hardware store, and now I finally started gluing this thing together. For now, it looks really cool with 2 arms. I hope the spacing works out with all 8 of them. For this inner part, because this is glass, I got some glass super glue. Did add one of the clear beads to the base crystal for the lower tier, because I felt like maybe that didn't go out enough and there wouldn't be space for the upper tier in between, so I hope that fixed that problem.
I can literally trick Hulu into thinking
You're gazing upon a broken woman. Not to be dramatic, but let's take a trip down disaster lane, shall we? Last I remember, I was very happy with my new glue because it successfully attached a row of the clear beads to the crystal and then arms to those beads. Cool. That went well for about 5 of the arms. And then it was getting kind of fiddly. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna step back from this and come back later once this is all set and rock solid. Haha. I did come back later last night and wanted to attach all the other ones. And This is the crystal now. Perhaps an indicator of how things were going by that point. Most of the ones that were already attached were a bit wobbly. And I was like, well, fuck, because I still need to attach a whole bunch of different stuff to those arms later. And even if I get them attached now, they're never gonna be as rock solid as I want them to, or need them to be, to do all the work that comes after. Not a good time, not a good time. A couple of the arms broke, because of course they did. I fixed those again. Just could not get like the last two goddamn arms to attach to this thing without immediately just doing that. I ripped them all off. And I was gonna break more with my bare hands. Just as I was about to howl into the night like a werewolf who stepped in a bear trap, I don't know where that image came from, I was like, you know what? Let's try one last thing. Let's be logical about this. This is what we've got now, which is different to how I originally imagined it, but it's looking a lot better than everything else I spent my time on yesterday. I think the problem of why these arms never really 100% set and were solidly connected to this stupid glass crystal, because the glue was basically just attached to the acrylic paint, like the outside layer. The wobbling that I could feel was like the air dry clay piece on the inside just being able to move around in the acrylic casing. I think that's what happened. And that was very annoying and pissed me off. Set out to look for a different base because I think that was part of the problem. Now attached to this white plastic bead in the middle, which conveniently also has 8 sides. And I've had this singular bead for forever for some reason, and now it finally has a purpose. Scratched off the acrylic paint in the parts where I connected the arms. I don't know if it would have made a difference with this material and with a different glue that I then thankfully could use for this, but I just wanted to be safe and not repeat the first disaster again. And this I can touch and move around. Need to figure out the second row of arms, the stack of beads in the middle, and then we can move on to the light bulbs at the end of each arm, and then the bead chains going across.
He's gonna go home next episode, earlier in the season when I have a feeling that someone's about to go home. And this
Okay, I just needed to lock in and try out some stuff. And now I'm feeling much better because we've made major progress. And it's starting to look like a chandelier now. So we've made it out of the crisis. I finally figured out, because that was another big problem, how I'm gonna make the light bulbs. The base was pretty easy because I did what everyone and their mother does from what I've seen online when making a mini chandelier, and used these little metal bead end caps that you can use for jewelry making usually. Even though surprisingly the base for the light bulbs in the original chandelier is pretty uneventful, but because I'm already omitting a lot of detail in other parts, I thought, you know, using something with more detail introduces back some more detail in other parts. In the end result, I'm hoping to get a good balance there. Also, because of the little holes in there, I think I can tie the bead strings to that. So that's gonna be very helpful. The light bulbs ultimately I decided to make out of hot glue, and I wanted to add a little fun feature to this thing because I'm a big believer in if you can't make it light up, you can still make it glow in the dark. That's always fun and improves any project if you ask me. So I have this glow in the dark tape, glued 4 layers of that together and then cut very narrow strips. Push those through the middle part of these bead end caps and then added a dollop of hot glue on top. We're gonna see how cool that turns out looking in the dark at the end. But for now, with the daylight look, very happy. What I'm trying to figure out at the moment is what beads, how many, and in what order I can use to string the whole thing together in the middle. gonna get started on the chain, hoping and praying to whatever entity that I have enough of the clear beads. And I'm gonna take some sewing thread. I'm just gonna double that because I cannot have this fall apart. Any day now I'll get the call that I can move into Collinswood for whatever reason, and when that happens, I will be ready. Would hold this up in triumph, but I'm kind of scared of touching it now. Got it? All good. Well, that wasn't exactly smooth sailing, was it? I think I really like it, but I need to definitely give it some time and just distance myself from it to fully appreciate it. It's one of those projects. But you know what? Big personal triumph, did not run out of clear beads during this. And that's because I counted them. As if I was Josh Widdicombe on Taskmaster Season 1. Needed to know if I had to order any more before I got fully started, or else I would have gone insane probably. But I was still very much terrified, so just to be safe, I added these blue beads in the middle of each of these chains down here. Finished up the top with those very same ones. Those are from an old headband that I took apart years ago. And luckily they were the exact right shade of blue that I needed for this. I also made these like dangly bits down here out of those. Definitely with the blue tint was mainly going for the appearance of the chandelier during the scene where like the ghost is going through it. A blue bead here and there really tied that whole thing together. Also a bit of size variation made it a little more interesting. More detail. Good. I think I realized during this project, not for the first time, but I keep forgetting, and maybe I need a little reminder that the scale of a project is not necessarily an indicator for the intensity of it. I should put that up on the wall probably somewhere so that I do not forget. The glow-in-the-dark bulbs, those were fiddly and I was struggling for a long time how I was gonna make those work. I think the effect is really cool. They go well together. It fits in well, which is good because that's where it's gonna stay for at least the next 6 months. I ain't touching that. Let's check how long this took. I must have been in a podcasty mood because I've written down 11.5 episodes. If not that, then the Beg to Differ album by Prong. I think the rest are YouTube videos, and I'm just gonna do what the British do when they talk about the meals that they order and just omit the word meal at the end, you know? 1 mini minute man, 3 Cam Kirkhams, 2 Jamie French, half a Chase Bridges, and 1 friendly space ninja. So that was a lot, but that's also it, which is great for me. I swear I like making things. I know it doesn't always sound like it. Sometimes the things make liking the process really hard. I still have like muscle memory and I can feel the agony still built up in every bone in my body about having to tie tiny little bead strings that do everything in their power to not be tied the way I want them to, you know? So it's gonna take a bit to get over that. I'm gonna go listen to some Donovan maybe and dance around the dinner table. See you next time. Rock on or whatever. Bye.